MMA Rants and Raves, UFC 129, George St-Pierre versus Jake Shields post-fight review. If you look at the first 3 rounds, guys, basically it looked like a mirror image of a Josh Koscheck fight. You see GSP very quick, circling his opponent, throwing really good jabs, and then mixing it up with some kicks when his opponent least expected it, and doing really well. And it seemed like he had Jake Shields rocked, but how many times has Jake Shields been rocked or looked like he was out and just basically clears out the cobwebs and comes right back up again. And that's just the type of fighter he is throughout his career. And it basically wasn't until about the end of round 3 where out of nowhere GSP just explodes for this takedown. I mean, the power and speed of this man is just extraordinary. And he just drops Shields. You can hear the thud when Shields hit the ground. I mean, GSP dropped him like a bad habit. It was like a knockout punch, but really it was a takedown. It was just so explosive. And, basically a brilliant game plan to ice the round in the judge's eyes after basically winning the stand-up and not taking any chances, but going for a takedown. And then, you only have 22 seconds. So he knew, Shields is not going to be able to get a submission in 22 seconds. So, I mean, it was a good strategy to kind of ice that round. 4th round looked like GSP was in trouble. That left eye was really swelling up. It looked like his nose really looked bad too. So, it looked like he was in trouble. I wanted to make a point here too. It looked like he was in trouble. And 4th round, basically, about 2:43, he lands this left head kick. And about 2:43, he lands this left head kick right on the money. I mean, Shields just dropped to the ground. And then, once again, he's just able to clear the cobwebs. I mean, he looked like, he was very alert and like no big deal. I mean, that's how tough this guy's chin is. That's a point I wanted to make. He's got one of the toughest chins in MMA history, Jake Shields. People don't talk about it that much. And he proves it time and time again in all his fights. And then the 5th round was real survival mode for GSP. I mean, he was battered and hurt. Despite the fact that he was winning the stand-up battle, he was also winning the ground game, with takedowns. And a technical win, that is. Technically, he was defeating Shields. And, basically, despite that, it was GSP that looked like he, took more damage if you look at his face, that is. And it's just genetics, I guess, because Shields got hit more, he got rocked more, but if you look at Shields' face, it just didn't look that bad. So I guess it's how thick your skin is, and, well, of course, how hard the punches are, that's another thing. So I guess it's a mixture of the two. It's really hard to go into the science of that. So basically, you go to the 5th round, and, GSP basically, in my opinion, he basically won all 5 rounds. And the judges gave GSP the decision. I'm going to make a point about this fight, and it's a message to these goofs out there. These goofs, the ones that are saying that GSP's not finishing fights, well, who has finished Jake Shields? Jake Shields won 15 straight fights. The guy was fighting at 2 different weight classes. Arguably, before he came into this fight, he accomplished more things that GSP has accomplished. GSP's never fought a middleweight. I mean, he's beaten really tough fighters, guys like Carlos Condit and Dan Henderson. I mean, he's fought really good fighters. And Martin Kampman, it looked like he was in trouble in that fight because of the weight cut thing, still came out with a victory. I mean, he's just a really good fighter. And the guy, I mean, like I said, he has one of the best chins in MMA history. He got hit by the freaking H-bomb and came back from that. How many times do you see Shields getting rocked and coming right back up again? I mean, took a head kick to the face from GSP. Ever see what GSP's legs look like? Getting hit with that thing, that would knock out most people. He gets rocked, comes back up again. So GSP did what he had to do to try to finish Shields. It's just that Shields has this amazing granite chin that it's just almost impossible to knock this guy out. I think the last time he was knocked out was the beginning of his career. He suffered some kind of TKO. As far as what I know, I haven't seen the fight, back in 2000. But since then, not even close. He's never been knocked out. Gets hit with the H-bomb from Dan Henderson, and not only, survives it, which most people won't. He actually comes back, out-wrestles Henderson, and wins the fight. This guy's a tough fighter. And as far as Jake Shields is concerned, so like I said, such a tough guy, all heart, gets rocked, keeps on coming back. And I mean, this guy is just, a really amazing fighter, and he did a lot of damage in this fight. It makes you wonder, if the fight was even longer than 5 rounds, what would have happened? I mean, a really, really good fighter, very tough, can take a lot of punishment. His face actually looked pretty good after all the punishment that he took at the end of that fight, as opposed to his opponent. And, basically the fight ended with him looking very respectable, being able to come back. The only thing is that, he wasn't able to get GSP down. I mean, GSP's got such powerful legs and upper body. I mean, GSP was just shoving off the takedowns, and that's really what the story was of this fight. And what surprised me was how good Shields did in the stand-up, because he basically took Shields' game away. I mean, he took away his whole ability to win this fight because he wasn't able to get him to the ground. And GSP was picking his spots of where to get Jake Shields down. So, stylistically, it was a tough fight for Shields, but he still looked very respectable. And, I was very impressed at how he did and how well he did in this fight. So, kudos to Shields. GSP was, really good fight. It was a technical battle, really interesting to watch. I mean, I enjoyed it. And then these goofs talking about going into GSP's soul. What kind of nonsense is that? I mean, it's a lot of garbage. It's ridiculous. I mean, go into his soul? I mean, haven't these guys watched the fight against Thiago Alves where the guy had a groin tear? Why don't these guys shooting off their mouths, talking about he's never been pushed or anything like that, you have to go into his soul and whatever. Why don't they watch that fight? Why don't they go in a 5-round match against a guy like Thiago Alves, right? And have a groin tear and somehow continue to fight well and to win the fight. I mean, do you have any idea what kind of pain that is? And to actually be able to fight with that kind of injury? And now he does it again. I mean, he couldn't see out of that left eye. His nose looked like it was broken, especially when he was going into that 5th round. And he was still able to fight well in that 5th round. So this is a guy who's been pushed, he's been injured, and he still comes up with a victory. So I got a message for you goofs out there, you goofs. And here it is. By declaring the winner of this bout by unanimous decision and still the reigning, defending UFC welterweight champion of the world, George